You already know the exact feeling I'm talking about. A video starts playing, or a voicemail you didn't mean to leave gets played back, and suddenly you hear it, your voice, coming out of the speaker. And something inside you recoils. That thin, nasal, slightly too high stranger talking. And the thought hits you, the same thought it hits everyone. Wait, do I actually sound like that? Yes, you do. And here is the part that's going to mess with you a little. That voice, the one you just cringed at, the one that made you wince, that is the real you. That is the voice your mother has heard your entire life. The voice your best friend knows. The voice every single person who has ever loved you has been listening to this whole time. That cringy recording is the true sound of you. And the voice you think is yours, the warm, rich, normal-sounding voice you hear in your own head when you talk, no one has ever heard it. Not one person. Not your parents, not your partner, not your closest friend in the world. And no one ever will. You are the only human being who will ever hear that voice, and it will die with you. You have spent your entire life in love with a version of your voice that doesn't actually exist. So why does the real one feel so wrong? Why does hearing your own true voice make you want to crawl out of your skin? The answer is stranger and deeper than just the recording sounds different. And by the end of this, I'm going to show you something genuinely bizarre. There's strong evidence that when you don't know a recording is you, you actually think your voice sounds great. Which means the cringe isn't really about the sound at all. Hold on to that. We're coming back to it. But first, let's solve the basic puzzle. Why does your recorded voice sound so different from the one in your head? It comes down to the fact that you hear your own voice through two completely different paths at the same time. When you speak, the sound travels out of your mouth, through the air, and back into your ears. That's air conduction, and it's exactly how everyone else hears you. But you're also getting a second signal that no one else gets. As you talk, your vocal cords vibrate the bones and tissues of your skull directly, and those vibrations travel through your head straight to your inner ear. That's bone conduction. And here's the crucial part. Bone conduction carries extra low frequencies. Bass, richness, warmth. So the voice you hear in your head every time you speak is a blend. The airborne sound plus a deep, resonant layer of low tones piped in through your own skull. It's a fuller, deeper, more flattering mix. A private remaster that only you receive. And then you hear a recording, which captures only the air-conducted version, with all that skull bass stripped away. And it sounds thinner, higher, weaker, foreign, wrong. But it's not wrong. The recording is accurate. It's the honest version. The voice in your head is the enhanced one, the one with the bass boost only you will ever hear. Sit with how strange that is for a second. There is a version of your voice that is yours alone, a sound no other person has ever experienced or ever could. And there's the real one, the public one, that everyone in your life knows intimately and that you barely recognize. You and the rest of the world have been hearing two different people this entire time. But here's where it gets interesting. Because if it were only about frequencies, you'd just think your recorded voice sounds a bit higher and shrug. You wouldn't cringe. You wouldn't feel that hot flash of embarrassment. And that tells us the acoustics are only half the story. Back in 1966, two researchers named Phil Holtzman and Clyde Rousey ran one of the first real studies on this, and they gave the phenomenon a name: voice confrontation. They found that people's discomfort at hearing their recorded voice wasn't just about the unfamiliar pitch. It was about something deeper. When you hear yourself played back, you're not just hearing a sound. You're being confronted with yourself, from the outside, all at once. The recording exposes things the in-head voice hides: your hesitations, your nervousness, the emotion leaking through. the way you actually come across to other people. It's a sudden, unfiltered look at the self you broadcast to the world, a self you never normally get to observe. And it almost never matches the self you think you are. That's the real source of the cringe. It's not, my voice sounds bad. It's, that's how I come across? That's the impression I've been giving people? It's a collision between your internal self-image and the external evidence. The cringe is the sound of those two versions of you failing to recognize each other. And this is backed up by something you've probably noticed in other people. Think about radio hosts, podcasters, singers, actors, people who hear their own recorded voices constantly. They don't cringe, they're completely comfortable with how they sound. Why? Because of one of the most reliable findings in all of psychology, the mere exposure effect. We like things more simply because they're familiar. You've heard your in-head voice your whole life, so it feels right and normal and you. Your recorded voice is a relative stranger, so it feels wrong. But people who hear their real voice over and over eventually habituate. The stranger becomes familiar. The cringe fades. Which proves the cringe was never about your voice being ugly, it was about it being unfamiliar. And now for the part I promised, the finding that flips this whole thing on its head. In 2013, researchers Susan Hughes and Marissa Harrison had people listen to a batch of voice recordings and rate them for attractiveness. Secretly, mixed into the batch was each person's own voice, but unlabeled, so they didn't consciously know which one was theirs. And the result was astonishing. People rated their own voice as more attractive than other people rated it. They liked it. They were drawn to it, as long as they didn't know it was them. Read that again, because it's the key to everything. When the recognition is removed, when your brain doesn't flag, "This is me," the cringe vanishes completely, and a hidden bias kicks in that makes you find your own voice appealing. Which means the discomfort was never living in your ears, it was living in the recognition. The cringe isn't triggered by the sound, it's triggered by knowing it's you, by that head-on collision with your own self-image. Strip away the self-awareness, and you actually kind of love how you sound. And here's a final piece of perspective that might reframe this entire feeling. This experience, hearing your own voice played back, is brand new in human history. For roughly 300,000 years, not a single human being who ever lived heard their own voice. Ever. They lived their whole lives, said millions of words, sang, laughed, whispered to their children, and died without ever once knowing what they truly sounded like to the people around them. That only changed in 1877, when Thomas Edison built the first device that could record and replay sound. Before that moment, your true voice was something only other people could know. You are part of one of the first handful of generations in the entire history of our species to ever come face to face with your own real voice. That deep, instinctive discomfort you feel? It might be partly because, on some level, we were never built to hear this. For almost all of human existence, no one ever did. So let's pull it all together. The cringe is not your voice being bad. It never was. It's the collision of two selves, the private, bass-boosted, deeply familiar voice that has lived inside your skull your entire life, and the real, external, honest voice that every person you love has always known. Cringing is what it feels like when those two selves meet and don't recognize each other. So here is what I want to leave you with. That voice on the recording, the one you can't stand, the one that makes you wince, is not a stranger. It's the voice that sang happy birthday to people you love. The voice that said, "I love you," and meant it. The voice that comforted a friend at 2 a.m., that told jokes that made a room laugh, that has carried every meaningful thing you've ever said to another human being. It is the realest, truest version of your voice there is. Everyone in your life has heard it, known it, and loved it. Everyone except you. The only person who has never gotten to appreciate your real voice is you. And maybe, knowing what you know now, it's finally time you did.